Welcome everybody to the El Cajon City Council meeting. We continue holding meetings remotely while the governor's executive order continues to be in effect due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to remind our citizens that they can submit questions for items on today's agenda. As we have done in previous meetings, I encourage that public comments be submitted this time. We will read them at the appropriate time during the meeting. Comments will be accepted up to the conclusion of the vote of the item. Comments may be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website, which is www.cityofelcajon.us. This will be under a streaming, and you'll see a button to submit your questions. The meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, sir. If you could please state that you are present when I call on your name. Mayor Wells.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Here.
Council Member Goebel.
Here.
Council Member Mitchell.
Here.
And Council Member Ortiz.
I'm here.
Thank you.
If everybody could join the silence. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have one presentation on today's agenda, the Teen Coalition Mid-Year Report. Recreation Services Supervisor Malo Lutu will tell us about this. Malo?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Malo Lutu. I'm the Recreation Service Supervisor at Renette and the staff liaison for the Teen Coalition. This year we selected 8 El Cajon youth to be part of the Teen Coalition. And now I'm going to give them an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves and tell you who they are. Okay, so first we're going to start off with, Sage. Is he on here? All right, I guess we will jump over. Let's go to Alexis. So Alexis, if you could introduce yourself to the council, please.
Hi, I'm Alexis Serrano. I am in 8th grade and I attend St. Kieran Catholic School. I chose to be in the Teen Coalition so I could represent the youth and take part in lots of community service projects.
Next, we will introduce Bianca. She is the chair, and she kind of will give you the rundown of what we've done so far and what our plans are for the rest of this time.
Hi, my name is Bianca Margot, and I'm a senior at Valhalla High School. I'm currently serving as the chair of Teen Coalition, and I've been in Teen Coalition for about 4 years now. I initially joined this group because I saw it as a great opportunity to contribute to the group's efforts of planning and organizing recreational projects for children and teenagers around the city. And I was also looking forward to adding some of my own insights to help the program grow even more. So I just want to thank you all for allowing us to present today, and I'm just going to give you a rundown of kind of what we do. So Teen Coalition's mission is to encourage youth members of the community to join so that they can have a meaningful role in the city in regards to planning and coordinating events and projects in the community. In Teen Coalition, we focus mainly on projects that attract young children and teenagers in efforts to make them stray away from unsafe or inappropriate activities and rather engage in safe, fun, and productive activities. This year, we've been trying to increase our social media presence as that's the main way to connect with our audience at this point in time. Since children and teens are most active on social media platforms like Instagram and the video app TikTok, we filmed videos in the beginning of February that show tutorials on how to make some of our favorite snacks for Super Bowl Sunday. Then later in February, we made Valentine's Day themed craft kits for children where we put together bags filled with craft materials. And then we filmed social media posts with tutorials on how to make those Valentine's Day crafts. We made about 50 bags in total, and parents were able to pick them up from the rec center at Renette. And currently, we're also working on organizing a day camp that's taking place in the beginning of April. Our goal is to make it a fun and memorable experience for the children after 1 year of being mostly at home. We're also in the process of Youth of the Year award selections. Applications aren't due yet, but we have received several nominations from teachers and staff members, and we're just working on coordinating interviews for those nominations. So again, I just want to thank all of you for having us here today. And now, if Mala has anything else to add on.
Thank you very much, Bianca. We lost connection with Sage and Sky, so they're back on here now. So Sage, you want to chime in here and introduce yourself?
Hello, City Council. My name is Sage.
Hey, Sage.
I'm 17 years old. I'm a junior at Valhalla High School, and I joined Teen Coalition because I wanted to help make my community better in all aspects of life.
Hi, my name is Sky. I'm 14 years old. I'm in 8th grade. I go to Literacy First Charter School, and I joined the Teen Coalition to help people and help my community.
Nice.
Thank you very much. So again, there's only some of the kids today. We had some kids who are on college tours. We have other kids who are working, other kids who have other appointments, doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So we're missing a couple of them, but we're definitely on the thing. We're working on our summer day camp, spring day camp, that stuff that's coming up. So we're going to be putting on the Fun Friday event, so with activities for the kids and stuff like that. So good group of kids, man, and I'm just glad to work with them.
I tell you, everybody's so poised and articulate for being in high school. That's really great.
Yeah.
You've done a good job, Mala. Anybody have any questions or comments? Or hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope you have a great year with Teen Coalition, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it later.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're finishing up, rounding up the rest of the Youth of the Year applications, and we'll be with you guys here sometime next month.
Excellent.
Working on that. Okay.
Hopefully we can all meet in person.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. That brings us to agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, no changes to the agenda from us.
Council members? Okay. Then let's move on to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion, according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Looks like no. Staff?
No, sir.
I'll make a motion then to approve the consent items.
Second.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, we received no comments for consent items.
Thank you.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
And Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, did you receive any comments for this?
Yes, sir. We have two comments. The first one is from Sally Smith, and she wrote, "Please do not allow the Oktoberfest again this year, as it is still too soon." End of comment. And the second comment is from Elaine Briggs, and she writes, "I am voicing my concerns regarding traffic and noise for the proposed 24/7 Amazon distribution center planned for the corner of Weld Boulevard and Cuyamaca. We live less than half a mile from the site and didn't hear about this planned center until late February when a local news channel
Graham, I think we've had a glitch.
We may have lost Angela, so if we
She can come back and read that public comment a little bit later. Let's go ahead and move on.
Sounds great.
There are no written communications on today's agenda. There are no public hearings on today's agenda. And we have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 7 is the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 mid-year report and the 5-year business plan update. And staff, would you please tell us about this?
So, Mr. Mayor, we're going to loop in our finance director, Clay Shane. There he is.
Hi, Clay.
Good afternoon. I was changing over there. I did not hear. Are we all ready for me to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, you're set. It's all you, Clay. Uh-oh. It's contagious.
Hopefully this is not an omen for the rest of the night, huh?
Well, when we're in person later, let's hope we don't freeze up like that.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he's taking it. He's just holding a pose.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. Okay, did we get that sorted out?
I think you're good, Frank. Clay, go ahead.
Okay, I will speak as quickly as I can while I have internet service, evidently. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. I'm Clay Shane. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of El Cajon. I'm in front of you today presenting the mid-year report and 5-year business plan update for fiscal year 2021. Today's presentation, we will briefly spend a few minutes discussing the background and overview of how we got to where we are today, as well as discussing the estimated fiscal year 2021 performance, projected 5-year activity, how that impacts the fiscal year 2022 budget, and then we will spend as much time as possible with any questions and discussion that you have. So, about a year ago, we sat on the cusp of issuing this very report. That timeline coincided with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it sent a lot of questions into the air about our financial status. We withheld issuing the report for several weeks, hoping to get better information, and it took actually several months before the picture cleared up. In the first few months after we issued the mid-year report, sales tax in particular had a lot of question marks associated with it. We had projections ranging anywhere up to a worst-case scenario of a $12 million annual drop in sales tax. As time went on and we gathered better and better information, that estimate improved to an $8 million shortfall, a $6 million shortfall, and eventually led us up to the last discussion we had leading into the adoption of the 2021 budget approximately 9 months ago. At that time, we were still looking at projected shortfalls in sales tax, somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 to $5 million a year. With that, we adopted a budget that was anticipating a revenue shortfall of approximately $3.7 million to be made up with fund balance. However, in the first half of fiscal year 2021, we have been pleasantly surprised by growth in sales tax given the circumstances that, frankly, could only be described as robust. This is the best of news and has put us on a much more secure footing than where we anticipated a year ago. Additionally, had it not been for COVID-19, the highlight of the year would be the issuance of pension obligation bonds and the impact they'll have on city operations. So jumping right in, presented on this slide are our projected 2021 revenues in the general fund. As you can see in the very first line, sales tax are performing quite a bit better than we anticipated in the budget. We're anticipating ending the year approximately 8.5% over budget, or approximately $3 million. Property tax continues to perform strongly, coming in even higher than anticipated at close to 7% up. Franchise fees pretty much anticipated to end the year where expected, and all remaining categories witnessing a little bit of a softening, but not anything super catastrophic. By the end of the year, we expect total general fund revenues to exceed budget by approximately 2.5%, or approximately $2 million. On the expenditure side, bottom line, we're expecting to be approximately $500,000 or $600,000 under budget. As you can see, this is kind of split amongst several categories. Salaries and benefits at this point are projecting to be more or less on budget, with most of the savings coming from our material supplies and service budgets. By year end, we're expecting the total net impact of the general fund to be as described on this slide. I want to spend a little bit of time on this one. When we adopted the budget, we anticipated revenues of approximately $74 million against expenditures of just shy of $78 million. And that's where you see the use of $3.7 million worth of reserves. As part of the pension funding policy, the City Council took action to transfer the first amount to establish the PARS Section 115 Trust in the amount of $2 million. Now, the way that'll look from an accounting perspective is a reduction in fund balance or an expenditure, a use of funds. But in a lot of ways, I think we can think about it like transferring money from one pocket to another. It's still available with a significant amount of discretion of the City Council. All in all, based on that, the budget and the use of the PARS Trust, we should be shy or using approximately $5.7 million of fund balance. However, by the halfway point of the year and looking for the second half, that looks much better. Our total bottom line is anticipated to reduce fund balance by a total of $3.3 million, which is approximately $2.5 million better than we anticipated. Big chunk of that is on the operational side, and then there's, of course, the $2 million transfer to the PARS Trust Fund. How that looks, the various reserve buckets, we see no impact at year end or anticipate no impact at year end on the 20% operating reserve. The economic uncertainty reserve remains untouched at $6.5 million. The reserve for unfunded retirement obligations is the funding source for the establishment of the PARS Trust Fund. So we will see that be reduced by approximately $2 million, with the remaining $1.3 million reduction in fund balance coming from the carryover reserve. So with all that being said, we're anticipating ending the fiscal year with general fund reserves of approximately $45.5 million. Presented on this slide is a caveat included in the attached report. I won't read this to you, but I'll tell you briefly what it is because it's a very important concept to understand when reviewing this information. And it basically states that the information presented are projections. And what that is a look at our current model, the current way of doing business, the current decisions made, and rolling those into the future to see what the impact would be if we don't make any further decisions or change course. And this is a very important tool because it highlights where we need to pay attention during the budget process and our long-term financial planning. A lot of times I receive feedback that, hey, you always say we're going to be in deficit, but we come along with a budget and we present a balanced budget. And that's because we've highlighted problems as part of the 5-year projection. And then through the budget process, we make decisions to mitigate those problem areas. And I would expect that to be the continuing pattern. So this isn't necessarily a statement of this is what will happen, but rather an action to draw attention to areas that require attention during the budget process. In this 5-year outlook, this 5-year business plan, there's a number of highlights I wanted to bring to your attention. The first of which, and really, it's kind of funny, we have a 10-year outlook in the 5-year outlook. We increasingly are finding that the decisions we are making on a daily basis have long-term implications, and it was important to start looking at the impacts over a longer term. Therefore, for the first time, we've extended the 5-year business plan to include 5 additional years. I'll have a few more comments a little bit later in the presentation about the quality of those 5 years and how they should be viewed. but I think this is a big step forward in our outlook. Additionally, in this 5-year outlook, we begin to see the effects of the issuance of the pension obligation bonds. This is very important as well. Given the nature of the way we've structured that transaction, we don't see a tremendous impact in fiscal year 2022, next year. However, in the years presented, you increasingly see the impact, and it is fairly significant. Also included in this year's outlook is the shift of animal shelter operations from city staff to the Humane Society. And it also includes the anticipated impacts of the new car dealerships and new hotels. So one of the key components of a successful projection are the quality of the assumptions that go into it, and there are a number of them detailed in the report. The majority of them are fairly routine assumptions we make, but here again, there's a handful that I would like to draw your attention to. The first of which is related to transient occupancy tax, or the hotel tax. During this COVID-19 pandemic, TOT revenues have been hit pretty significantly. And as part of the 5-year outlook, we've made certain assumptions about the rate at which this revenue will recover. We've been very conservative in this estimate and anticipate that it may take 2 to 3 years to fully recover, although that is really not based on anything other than our own guesstimate, our guarded guesstimate of that. Additionally, maybe most importantly in these additional assumptions is that we do not assume an extension of the Proposition J additional sales tax measure. For those not familiar with that, in 2009, the city of El Cajon passed a resolution, or not a resolution, passed a proposition authorizing an additional half-cent sales tax for 20 years. That sunsets in 2029. Currently, it's generating $10 to $11 million a year in sales tax for the general fund, and through the course of these projections, you begin to see that expiring. Additionally, during the term of this outlook, we see the resumption of more normal CIP, general fund, CIP, and vehicle replacement funding. And there is no additional pension funding assumed in this outlook. And the reason for that is as part of the pension funding policy, we adopted a specific action to be taken in the fall to bring pension-specific information to the City Council and have a focused discussion on pension strategy at that time. Including assumptions at this stage would be a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. However, in future versions of this outlook, I'm assuming we will have strategy rolled in. So with that being said, presented on this slide are the numbers for the next, the current year, as well as the next 10 years of projected activity. And there's an awful lot of information on this slide. I specifically want to draw attention to the far right column, the change in fund balance. That is the difference between anticipated revenues and anticipated expenditures for each of the years presented. If you'll notice, there's a very subtle font change about halfway down, and that's where we change from the first 5 years, or the traditional 5 years of the outlook, and move to the additional 5 years. And I want to draw attention to that because we have far more unknowns in that second set of 5 years than the first 5 years. I think there is value in doing this work. However, it should be kept in mind that as these years progress, the quality of the information is a little less than the previous year. So going through this, there's a couple of interesting trends I want to discuss. As I mentioned earlier, we're anticipating ending the year, the current fiscal year, in a shortfall of approximately $3.3 million. And here again, $2 million of that was being used to establish the PARS Trust. So really, we have $1.3 million shortfall from operations. For the next 4 years, we have modest shortfalls projected. And these shortfalls are far less than we've seen in previous years. They do indicate that some work still remains to be done, but we have a much smaller hill to climb with the results of some of the action we've already taken. The next few years, you see us starting to project very modest surpluses. I think this is a positive indication of having the course set in a positive direction. However, you do see in the last 2 years presented, fiscal year 30 and 31, the first 2 years of following the conclusion of the Proposition J additional sales tax measure, where we see the projected revenues drop by a little more than $12 million a year by that point in time. So I will pause here for a moment and allow you to look at those over and digest that a little bit before moving on to the next screen. All right, so on this slide, we're presenting the projected ending fund balance in the general fund for the traditional 5-year set of the outlook. And here again, we see the impacts of the very minor projected shortfalls, as well as in the final year presented the turnaround as we start moving into projected surplus. This is a very slow moving trend here with no big jumps each year. And I think this is a projection we're comfortable addressing. How this unpacks on 2022, as I said, we've used this work to draw attention to trouble areas or areas that need attention, and work is already underway. In fact, a number of our bigger departments have already been working on the 2022 budget for 2 to 3 months now. In the next couple of months, the Department of Finance, as well as the City Manager's Office, will be working to compile a preliminary budget for it to be presented to City Council on June 8th of this year. At that time, we will present the budget, discuss its contents, receive any feedback from the City Council, and from there make any changes we need and bring it back to Council for adoption on June 22nd. This is important to have this budget in place, of course, because the period starts July 1st. Additionally, as part of this report, we have a couple of minor housekeeping actions required to Council. Ordinarily, I would detail these out, but I think the scale of these are small enough that I think most people would consider them housekeeping. Therefore, this action has the following recommended actions. First, we recommend that the City Council receives and accepts the fiscal year 2021 mid-year report and 5-year business plan update, authorizes the proposed personnel changes detailed in this report, increases or modifies the fiscal year 2021 appropriations in the amount of $40,000 for initial needs as detailed in this report, and authorizes the proposed capital expenditures detailed in this report. With that, that concludes our presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, questions?
I've got a question on sales tax. We've got a nice big recovery in sales tax. Do we know if that is from brick and mortar locations in El Cajon or internet purchases, or what combination?
Thank you very much for bringing that up, Council Member. Actually, there's a number of things that we're witnessing that's contributing to the success of sales tax this year. The first of which, following the drop in activity in March and April, rather than a permanent decline, we saw sales and order operations bounce back pretty hard in the months following that. It really looked like someone had hit the pause button, and once they got the green light, resumed spending. Secondly, just about anyone who went through the Great Recession anticipated a very similar pattern in automotive sales, just expecting them to fall off a cliff and plummet, and defying all of our thoughts. People are buying cars through all this, and I think that's a remarkable thing and is very good for the city of El Cajon. And then lastly, the impact of internet sales has been very, very significant and surpassing pretty much anyone's expectations of the way they'd contribute to the bottom line.
Okay, I'm hearing our car dealerships in town are doing well. I'm not understanding, are our brick and mortar businesses in El Cajon doing well? The sales tax?
Yes, they're doing a lot better than I think we anticipated a year ago.
Okay. All right. So what did we think we were going to use this fiscal year in reserves? Was it like 5.7 million or something like that?
Well, the adopted budget was a shortfall of $3.7 million was our starting point. At that later in the year, we adopted the contribution to the PARS Trust Fund, which would have been an additional use of reserves of $2 million. So between the two of those actions, we anticipated to reduce reserves by a total of 5.7. Because of the turnaround and the strength this year, we're anticipating that being at the end of the year a use of reserves of approximately 3.3 million.
And does the 3.3 include 2 million for the PARS Trust?
Yes, it does.
So it's really 1.3 million from operations.
That's correct.
So the fact that we only have to draw 1.3 million out of our reserve for operations during COVID year, we're very fortunate.
I would say so, yes, sir.
Okay. Another item you had was the animal shelter. That was brought up a couple of times. I thought when we switched over to Humane Society that it was going to be described as a wash, that we were spending roughly $1 million on in-house services, and we would end up spending about $1 million in payments to the Humane Society. Has that changed? Is there some benefit to the animal shelter I don't know about?
Well, I would, boy, there's a lot to say on that topic. I would say roughly at the single year of changeover, it was more or less a wash. Given the cost of government labor and the salary and benefits costs associated with city workforce, I think the long-term impacts will be more favorable from a cost perspective. But I think the big headline isn't necessarily so much the cost of making that change, but what we're getting in exchange for that money is significantly greater with the Humane Society. And I would encourage people to look at it that way is whether it's a animal shelter slightly more or less expensive might be beside the point when looking at the expansion of services they provide.
So really that's the comment that you wanted on the slide that listed the 5 favorable things in the 5-year outlook. It's more about the quality of service.
Not necessarily. I think my inclusion of that note was more just an acknowledgement that has changed the way those numbers look. And not necessarily the impact on the bottom line. I think the rest of my comments are largely classified as editorial.
Sounds good. So my final thing is on the CARES Act money so far. This is kind of a pat on the back for city staff because we have been allocated roughly $3 million so far in the 2 rounds of CARES Act funding. And we received $1.2 million of that $3 million. But we've turned around and handed out $2.7 million. So we're loaning the public, not loaning the public, we're loaning our reserve fund, advancing from our reserve fund $1.4 million to people who need help before we even get the money from the federal or state government. So that's an attaboy for city staff because we haven't got the money yet, and we dipped into reserves to $1.3 million to help people stay afloat. And I think that's something the public would appreciate that you've done for them.
Council member, I appreciate you saying that, and that's one thing. When we talk a lot about the strength of the reserves and how important it is to maintain those, but that's one of the side effects that we don't talk about very much. But a lot of federal funding is on a reimbursement basis and does require us to spend the money before we can draw down and receive it from the federal government. And one of the reasons we're able to do that so successfully is via the strength of our reserves.
And the strength of our reserves means we don't have to go out and borrow for short-term needs and incur the program and interest costs related. So good job. Thank you very much.
Other council members wish to speak? All right.
I have a question.
Clay, I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry. Clay, we talked about no extension of Prop J. And did I understand that correctly, that once that goes away, that half-cent tax increase, that we're going to be missing that $10 to $11 million? Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So do we have plans to implement something else to regain that amount?
Councilmember Mitchell, I'll step in for this part. We're actually putting in the budget for next year's budget that you will have an opportunity to either yay or nay, a little bit of money for some consulting services for us to understand what would it look like if we were to go out and extend Prop J and start looking at timing and giving the council recommendations. So we're going to start doing some analysis on that because I think it's around the corner. It's not going to happen. It's in our lifetime. It's going to happen soon. So I think starting to think about it, there's some prudence to do so. And so we'll be bringing some recommendations forward to the council shortly.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Michelle. That's exactly the same question I was going to ask. So great. Anybody else? All right, Clay, thanks. Very comprehensive report. I'm really pleased with at least the next 5 years. So thank you very much. We have to go now to Angela. Do we have any comments for this item?
We do not, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion, or would somebody like to start making motions? Well, no discussion, so if somebody would like to make a motion, I'd be happy to accept it.
Move to receive, accept the fiscal year 2021 mid-year report and 5-year business plan update, and authorize the proposed personnel changes detailed in the report, and increase or modify the fiscal year 2021 appropriations in the net of $40,000 for additional needs as detailed in the report, and authorize the proposed capital expenditures.
I second.
Morgan, is that okay to have that all in one? Okay.
Yes.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick. Council Member Goebel.
Yes.
Council Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Council Member Ortiz.
My vote is yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Great. The second administrative report, item 8, is for Prop 68 grants, parks and recreations applications. And I'd like to ask staff to tell us all about this.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Frank Carson, Parks and Recreation Director for the City of El Cajon. I want to just give you a brief rundown of potential grant applications that we have for Proposition 68. First, just a quick background on Proposition 68. It was passed by voters on June 5, 2018, and since then we've been able to host over 40 community meetings to meet a lot of the guidelines of the grant applications. This was a $4 billion parks and water bond. Only a portion of that $4 billion actually goes to local park and recreation agencies that we can compete for those funds. This specific funding amount is about $346 million total in this round, and we anticipate at least within that, at least 40 agencies getting awarded that, if not more. They told us this is the final round, and so they're hoping for a lower dollar amount where they could give it to as many agencies as possible. This application is actually a 15-part, quite extensive application that we've had to check off the box to meet all those different requirements. And a lot of it does require public input. Something unique that we've actually been able to do, if you see my lanyard wearing the El Cajon 2030, this is our plan that we created and was adopted by council in 2019, is that we've hosted, just with this alone, we hosted 18 community meetings that also fit the Prop 68 requirement of public input. And in many of those meetings, we had 5 languages spoken with translators. So we see that this plan is very much an equity-based plan, and it identifies many of the areas that are underparked in our city. We're grateful that the state is allowing us to go back to June 2018, and we can document those community meetings with the surveys, so we can actually include those in our applications. So the four applications that we are looking at, and I'll talk about point system and why these were evaluated as the strongest. And I'm just choosing Heartland as a name right now. The name could be anything. Is the Heartland Pickleball Fitness Area and Playground. The reason why Heartland is right next to the Fire Station 9, where Heartland has their fire training center. The Wells Park Pickleball Complex and Arena Soccer Complex, Bostonia Community Center, and the Kennedy Community Center. So I'm sure you may be wondering what pickleball is. Some people do. So just to give you a quick snapshot of why pickleball, through our public input process, we've actually had a large amount of our active adults requesting more pickleball. We currently have it at indoor, or we had it pre-COVID indoor at the Bostonia Community Center. But if you look around our surrounding East County community, La Mesa, Santee, Lakeside, they all have outdoor pickleball courts, and they are thriving. This isn't just the fastest growing sport for ages 60 plus, and it's not just something that is a cool thing right now. And I'll give you an example very quickly of something that's cool right now. About 20 years ago, roller hockey was the hottest thing. Like, this is a growing trend. Some agencies were building roller hockey rinks, and then 2 years later, it just fell through. This has been the fastest growing sport for ages 60 plus for over 20 years. So we know that it has staying power, and the community is asking for it. That's why we're proposing it as part of our plan with the public input process. I just threw in here one article. I just Googled like what pickleball, and I want to see news articles about it. Just alone within the last 2 weeks, there's 8 articles about pickleball in cities and how people are pushing for more access to it. So it's not just here where people are wanting that, it's throughout the nation. Going back, so I'm putting these in order of what's most likely to be awarded by the state. And the reason why this one would be number one is that this is a new park site. So new park sites actually get 15 points higher on the grant application. And this park site, you would know it as the former animal shelter, where it's semi-demolished right now. Part of the grant application would include full demolition of it. And this is a $2.8 million grant request. Within that, so part of it is that we have to actually do some dissection, do some identifying. And the one statistic I really want to point out here that's unique is at the bottom. Parks per 1,000 people, it's at 0 acres per 1,000 people. So the state requires that we either have it less than 3 acres per 1,000 people on that marker at 0, which is very unique, or their median household is at $56,982. So both of these, we actually meet the factor in both, which is unusual. This is in a disadvantaged community. We would be top scoring if it was in severely disadvantaged, so the yellow area, but it's in disadvantaged communities. So it also brings us up in terms of the way how they do points. It's a very matter of fact how they do the points, and that's just another factor. So what is being proposed by city staff in just talking with the potential facility users, being that it would complement the Heartland Fire Station 9, we would propose a fire station themed type playground space. What we're trying to do in all of our playgrounds, long-term goal is to add adult fitness. So we would add an adult fitness area to this. So while the kids play, the parents also get the opportunity to play, or grandparents, however it may be. And then the bottom here would be an example of, sorry about that, some pickleball courts that we would also add into this location. Again, this one is the most likely because it's a new park site. The other three, such as Wells Park, these would be renovated sites. The reason for Wells Park is that we've actually had a lot of public input on Wells Park alone. We've hosted over a dozen community meetings, or when we've had events, we've actually done the surveys there. So like when we had the snow day and the movie night, a lot of times when we have movies in the park or drive-in movies, we do surveys then, so we have that captive audience. We've captured the audience of the dog park to get their feedback on what they're looking for. But a large amount of our community, they're looking for greater pickleball access. This site, if you look in the yellow area, this is the former teen, the Boys and Girls Club Teen Center. It has that building there already, that infrastructure in place to where we could add in the pickleball courts. If you remember the soccer court that's there, this would be north of the building of the soccer court. So one side of the building would be soccer courts and the basketball courts, and then the other side would be pickleball. We would see this as more of a regional draw, especially if we were able to add in the arena soccer courts. We imagine getting 4 arena soccer courts into this location with artificial turf, so we could have those 24, or I should say 365 days a year, or as many days as we wanted it programmed. We don't have to shut down the field for field rehabilitation. So this is unique because if you look at it, it says parks per 1,000 at the bottom, but it's 1.6 acres per 1,000. And if you look at it also, Wells Park necessarily is not in severely disadvantaged, but the surrounding community. So that red circle you see around there, that's a half-mile window. So this qualifies us. This brings us up in a very high ranking as well. The median household price here is at $38,569. Remember, it had to be under $56,982 or the 3 acres per 1,000. So we actually meet both factors here also. So this brings us up in points as well. And this would be just an idea. On the left, this would be some arena soccer courts. I'm not proposing these colors. This is just an idea. So it would probably be the green artificial turf type of field. And then we envision some type of multi-outdoor pickleball complex. Right now, we're not going to be allowed to do any indoor adult activities, but we can do some outdoor pickleball. And I think that's a big reason also why our community is clamoring for that. You know, a negative definitely on our on the Parks and Recreation Department. Sometimes we are too youth focused. So we definitely want to listen to our active adult community when they kept on pressing for greater access to pickleball. That's why you see it promoted heavily to these applications as well. The Bostonia Community Center, so this is one of our 5 community centers and one of 2 that have not been renovated to date. And then when I say renovated, so if you look at it, Renette was renovated in 2012. The Hillside was completed its renovation 2014. And then in 2017, the Reagan Center was renovated. This is one of 2 that still need that renovation. This would be a $2.3 million grant request at this specific site. And if you look at it again, this is information that we have to submit back to the state. This is the information they give us, but on the application we have to include it. So I thought it was a unique snapshot for you to see as well. So some of the area around Bostonia is not disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged, but within that half mile it is, so it qualifies us. The median household price is above the threshold of $56,982, but the parks per 1,000 is below the 3. It's at 1.34. So we still qualify with that factor as well. And this is just an idea. I mentioned in the agenda report that we'd be CEPTED, or crime prevention through environmental design. And you see this is actually the Renette Center and how it was remodeled. You see how the offices popped out. That's so staff can actually see greater into the park, and they just have that natural surveillance presence in the park. So we would envision doing something like this, not only aesthetics, but also have a purpose behind it with the crime prevention through environmental design. We're proposing here to also include solar. They wanted us to include energy efficiency, and within that, this would be, if we were awarded a gymnasium with air conditioning, which we do not have in any of our city facilities right now. They just want to be cost effective, but with solar, it would be much more cost effective if we're awarded that. And then the last site here is the Kennedy Community Center. This would be almost the same thing as Bostonia. This is one of the other 2 sites that have not been renovated. Like I said, the other 3 community centers have. And you can see this is a larger site, but we're really focusing on the building itself. The playground there was installed in 2009. It just got a whole new, the last fiscal year, it got a whole new playground resurfacing, if you remember. And the skate park is still just about a little over 20 years old. So That is doing well. There's been some renovation to it, but we're focusing more on the community center and the needs of that, being that it was built almost 40 years ago, if you really look at it, and there's been no major renovation since. So this is a little unique. This one was hard to get that pin drop because you have to get that pin drop on there. You can move the pin all you want, but it has to be under 3. So if you look at it, the median household income is $96,957. So definitely don't meet that, but we got that pin drop at just where we needed it, and it's 2.97 per 1,000 people, and that specific pin drop where we could get it. But if you notice with that pin drop, there is a severely disadvantaged community not too far, so we qualify also with points higher there. Within that, so this is the Hillside Community Center. I thought I'd give you kind of an idea also of a pop out and the aesthetics, the new roofing, but we would also include solar with this. And we would want, so the goal would be to start looking at grants to get solar at our community centers in one way or another so we could be more energy efficient. Beyond staff costs, our next biggest cost would be utilities at our community centers and our parks. So we want to try to reduce those costs any way we can from the general fund, which would benefit the community, the city in the long run. At this time, I would take any questions if you have them for me, and I can go back to any of the slides if you'd like to refer back to them.
Thanks, Frank. Good presentation. Any questions for Frank?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
I may have not heard, but with regard to the pickleball courts, is there a reason we're not doing outdoor pickleball courts as opposed to indoor? Is it because we're building these facilities for seniors so they're climate controlled? I may have missed that presentation.
These would all be outdoor pickleball courts that we would be building.
Oh, they are outdoor. Okay, great. Fantastic. And then just a comment, with regard to the outdoor workout equipment, forget the name of the park, but it's right behind the Mercedes-Benz dealership.
Bill Beck Park.
What is it?
Bill Beck Park.
Bill Beck, that's right. Their outdoor work equipment is fantastic that uses your own body weight. Super innovative. So I would just like to express my support for that type of workout equipment because I use it frequently. And then a question with regard to this grant application process. When we're requesting this funding, is the application, is there an individual application for each park?
Yes.
Or is it, it is. So if we don't get approved for the Kennedy Center, it's not like we don't get any of them.
Correct. Yes. We can submit as many applications as we want. We were very targeted on how we did this, only because of the public input that's required in it as well.
Got it. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you, Frank. Great presentation.
I have a comment.
Sure, Michelle, go ahead.
Frank, I just want to let you know that I think this is great. The pickleball areas, I think are awesome. My neighbors are close to 70 and they play pickleball. And I like the idea of having the park down at Heartland because we sorely need a park up in District 2 up on this end. And that's close to District 2. And hopefully in the future we can get another park more up on the north end of Mollison area. But thank you for putting in for these grants because I think it looks wonderful. And I think the citizens are going to appreciate it.
Okay, more questions? Well, Frank, I have a lot of confidence in your ability and the department's ability to get a lot of grants, and we've certainly been very successful over the past 7-8 years, and so we're looking forward to seeing what you can do. Let's go ahead and see if there's any public comments on this. Angela?
We received no comments, sir.
Okay. Council, any more questions or discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Mayor, may I interject just briefly, Mr. Gobo, if we could, let's have separate approvals of each of these resolutions because they are going to be separate applications. It's my recommendation.
Thanks, Morgan.
So you need 4 motions for 4 grant applications?
Yes, please.
Can I just refer to them as Grant 1, Grant 2, Grant 3, and Grant 4?
Yeah, if you're going to make 4 motions, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I don't know how else to, if
Right.
you want me to use a proper name of a park or.
No, I think if you use the application number 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the motion, that'd be fine.
You want
Okay.
to vote between each one?
Pardon me?
You want to vote on each one?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll move that we accept application number 1.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
I'll move that we approve the application number 2.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
And Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
I'll move that we accept application number 3.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And I'll move that we approve the submission of application number 4.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Is that all of them? Okay. Moving on to the last thing. The last administrative report is item 9 is a COVID-19 status report. And I'll ask our city manager to tell us all about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. And also, so I don't forget, as a piece of housekeeping, we still have that one public comment that's hanging out there. So I'd recommend that after we finish the administrative reports, which this is the last one, that we go back and hear that comment, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you. So,
yes, of course. That's fine.
Perfect. So as you know, we give each council meeting a COVID status report. Just going to quickly highlight some of the data that's coming out. Talk about reopenings under the state plan, where we are in terms of vaccines, and then we wanted to give sort of the new item this week is just an update on where we are with our CARES Act, CDBG, CV, and CV3 expenditures to date. So as you can see from this graph, this is looking at the number of estimated active cases in the state. We've declined dramatically. We're back to early November numbers. So those are really good signs countywide. This shows the last 30 days, and as you can see, that trend has continued to go down, has not plateaued yet. So continues to be really good trend in that direction. This currently shows El Cajon's estimated active cases. Just as a point of reference, on January 10th, that was the high that we had, which we had almost 2,000 active cases in the city of El Cajon. We're currently at 264. So on looking at our entire population, 264 is pretty good number to be at this time in the pandemic. This shows our previous 30 days. Also, you can see this decline. We did see, when we reported last 2 weeks ago, we showed that there was kind of a bit of a plateauing, but we've actually now experienced a decline since that plateau. So we're continuing to downward trend. One of the data points I think it's important that the council asked about is looking at our hospital capacity. We've seen a 66% drop in COVID patients in the last month. That's pretty phenomenal. But interestingly, as COVID patients have dropped, all the other hospital needs have gone up. And frankly, a lot of things were being pushed off into the future. And so now those patients are able to have priority through the system. But we're well under that 80% capacity that we're hoping to be at to feel safe. Also looking at ICU beds, there's also been a dramatic drop in the number of ICU beds occupied by COVID patients. In fact, since February 8th, a 53% drop in the number of COVID patients in ICU beds. One of the things that we showed last week was how we compared in terms of active outbreak data per capita, or in this case, per 1,000 residents, compared to the county on the three different categories that we received data. We received information about our skilled nursing facilities, other congregate care, and then just general community. So you can see our skilled nursing facilities continue to be much higher than the rest of the county on a per capita basis. Our congregate care is lower, and our community outbreak number of active cases is significantly lower than the rest of the county. Thought it'd be interesting to look at that same data, but just focusing on El Cajon's data, kind of looking at every 15 days or so to see where we trended. And you can see that our skilled nursing facilities, I'll kind of just focus on this very top line, really peaked at the last council meeting that we shared this information with the council, and has dropped significantly. It has not slowly declined. It has dropped almost back down to early January numbers. Congregate care numbers, not as a dramatic drop, but we are lower than we were a few weeks ago. And our community outbreak data is also trending downward as well. So these are all good signs that we have in the community. In terms of our where we are at, we are currently in the purple tier. We think that we would probably be moving into the red tier shortly if there were more vaccines being distributed, especially to our communities of concern. So disadvantaged communities, as they receive more vaccines, I think we'll be able to move more quickly into the red tier. But these are all based on infection rates and then mitigated by vaccines at this point. So we do know, so this hasn't changed from the last presentation. We do know that the governor is giving his state of the state address from Dodger Stadium at 6 o'clock this evening. There may be some more news about where we're at from a reopening perspective. So we may get some more information there. The one big thing that we heard just this last week is that outdoor concerts are now allowed. There is in the purple tier, a max of 100 participants, reservations required, no concessions can be administered, and this would be after April 1st. However, once we move into the red tier, which we should be moving into relatively soon, outdoor concerts are allowed to be maxed out at 25% of capacity. So if you have an auditorium or an arena, such as, I know it as Mattress, Train, and Cricket Wireless, the amphitheater in Chula Vista, it's pretty significantly, it's a large facility. 25% of that starts being a viable place to hold events. So we start seeing outdoor concerts opening up soon, and we're hoping that will translate soon to indoor concerts, especially as vaccines become more available. We know that in some parts of the United States where Live Nation manages shows, that a negative COVID test is required as part of your entrance into a show. And so that could be one of the solutions that the state requires as we move further into the red tier and the orange tier. Looking at vaccine distributions, right now, 24% of San Diego's population has received the first dose. We're a little over 13% of the population receiving the second dose. So within the next 2 weeks, we should, folks that have been fully vaccinated will be well above 24%, especially as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes onto the market. I think it's important to recognize that where we are as a city in terms of vaccines, the countywide average is 205 individuals per 1,000 residents. Our zip codes, as you can see, we continue to lag behind the county. It's something that we've been asking the county to do more outreach in our community through their outreach program. So, and we continue to push it, the availability of vaccines on our website as well. Where we're at in terms of vaccine distribution, we're currently Tier 1A has been open for quite a while, which is medical folks, folks living in congregate care. Tier 1B has opened up, which includes those that are 65 and older, or those that have jobs that expose them to COVID risks, such as police officers and emergency service workers, which includes our public works department, for example, education workers, those that are in the childcare profession, of course, food and agriculture. We are expecting that by March 15th, we'll be moving into phase 1C, which is anybody between ages 16 and 64 with any underlying health condition or health risk. So it's going to start opening up more and more over the next few weeks. Again, there is a site in El Cajon by appointment only, operated by the county, Health and Human Services, where you can receive a vaccine. And of course, there's a super stations throughout the county, and those are continuing to expand. Again, one of the challenges for even more is just the sheer inventory. And so as more inventory becomes available, I think the county's goal is to get more places where people can get vaccines. Let's shift really quickly to some money aspects. Over or through the 2 CDBG COVID-related programs, the City Council has allocated a little over $1 million to different service organizations to provide very specific assistance. And as you recall, we have about $800,000 remaining still unallocated that we need to allocate at some point, and we'll be bringing forward some recommendations on that soon. Our housing and utility assistance program is spending money or had been spending money pretty quickly. We've shifted almost all of our resources to Home Start, and so they're getting the money out on the street. We have put that program into abeyance while the county currently operates their program. There's some value in our residents utilizing the county's program. Once it's obvious that, but we are still continuing to process applications that we have on file, but we're not taking new applications. But once those monies are expended, we'll be ready to ramp our programs back up locally so we can spend our money. The hotel or the motel voucher program has been extremely successful. The council's allocated $145,000, and recently just another of that $145,000, recently $100,000. So this is some brand new money that is currently being spent. We've housed 194 individuals, or serviced 194 individuals through the motel voucher program, or I should say households. That's not even individuals. And then our emergency shelter program through ECTLC has been phenomenal. We've spent all the money there. They're currently relying on their CDBG, their normal CDBG allocation to continue services, but just through the COVID relief money, they've been able to serve 620 individual households, and those are not duplicate households. Those are distinct households. That's pretty phenomenal amount of individuals served per dollar. So through this program, Council, you've been able to serve 917 households that desperately needed this, and this does not include the food distribution and some of the other services that you've been able to provide. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions that you may have, or if there's information that you'd like to see in future agenda reports, let me know. Or if the council would no longer like to receive these reports, we're open to that too. So we're all yours, Council.
Thanks very much. Council, Phil.
Yeah, in the news, I think I heard that moratoriums on evictions were going away, and we were going to see an increase in potential evictions. Is that, have you heard about that happening? And is that the reason there's an increase in our funding for rent relief being spent more, or is it a shift because we're having Home Start do it?
Councilmember Ortiz, I don't know that. I do know that we regularly talk to landlords. In fact, we talked to one today who's not under the impression that he can evict the tenants that are in his unit, despite having paid since the beginning of COVID.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
I've got a question on the CV1 and CV3 money. Do they have any expiration?
I don't know about expiration. I know that we have to allocate the money by August. So there must be some expiration. I don't know that for sure, but I can come back with council with some information on that.
I don't think I need to know, but I think staff should know.
I'm sure my CDBG staff knows. I just don't know.
Okay. My second question is ECTLC's had those 2 dormitory buildings approved for quite a while. Are they getting closer to construction? And where I'm leading with is helping more families and using more CARES funds to increase the amount of people, because they seem to be very efficient at it. What's the status of those 2 buildings? Do you know?
I don't know, Mr. Goebel. Again, I can
Okay.
find out more information for council.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Oh, one final question. You did contact the Southern California Rental Housing Association in order to try to increase the distribution by going through the landlords, didn't you?
We did.
Okay, so we've gone both ways. We put it out to the public for individuals, and we've tried to work through landlords.
Correct.
One of the dilemmas of rental assistance is with the moratoriums in effect, some renters are not motivated to seek assistance. And I believe there's a state law in development that would allow landlords to apply for these funds, not tenants, because that's who's carrying the burden of this thing, is the landlords. And the tenant would have to co-sign the application, but at least there is consideration on the other side for the landlords as well.
That's correct. Actually, under the current county program that's being offered, landlords are eligible as applicants. But as you said, Mr. Goebel, there needs to be sort of a co-signing of that. As we get a clearer picture of what's going to come to us in terms of federal regulation, I'll be really careful because it's not on the agenda. Staff is exploring some uses of those funds. One of those is we probably will be presenting something to help our business community, because that's not going to be income eligible, at least tied. But we also probably want to set up something to assist our landlords as well, and maybe with less strings attached than the county's current or the state's money. So we'll bring that forward as we have a little bit more, a clearer picture of what that money can be used for.
Yeah, I do like the idea of using the CV1 and CV3 monies to let landlords apply for that.
We cannot. That is an ineligible expense.
Oh, we can.
Yeah, the latest money that the state's using, that the county's administering, they can. We cannot use that money.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What type of communication are we giving out to landlords so that they know that they can apply for these funds for their, kind of on behalf of their tenants?
So we're, again, our funding does not is not eligible for landlords, but as Mr. Goebel indicated, it's important for landlords to know about programs that can directly benefit their tenants. Because if you have a tenant, you can say as a landlord, hey, have you thought about you owe me 8 months of rent, have you thought about getting some assistance from the city's program? So we've worked with the apartment associations directly to get information to them so they can get it to their membership.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I forgot to bring up two, I think, important points when we were talking about some of the data points. I thought it was interesting that the average age in San Diego County is about 36 years old, and the average individual that has succumbed to COVID death is 74 years old. So, and that's a data point that we've heard. I know I've heard the community talk about homelessness and COVID exposure. So far, this county has experienced 19 deaths, or homeless individuals have died from COVID. And then we also know, and that's countywide, and we also know that only 3% of those that have passed away from COVID had no underlying health condition. So there was some underlying health condition that may not have, COVID may have been what is the true cause of death, but there were other health conditions in there. I think it's important for the public to understand that, because I'm not hearing that in the media as much. So I think when we can explain those data points, I think it's important that we do so.
Makes you really wonder why they didn't use comorbidities as the number one criteria, and age as the number one criteria for choosing who would get the vaccine and who wouldn't. It seems like it was not smartly handled. It's just, you don't have to say anything. That's just my editorial. All right, anything else?
That's it, sir.
Anybody else want to comment? Okay, thanks. We may be getting at a point where we don't need these COVID-19 updates every week. That might be something that you could do when you feel it's appropriate. I don't know if the rest of the council wants them every week, that's fine, but it seems like the crisis is winding down.
I would agree.
I agree.
I would agree with you.
Okay, then.
Why don't we shoot? We'll kind of mentally shoot for the first meeting of the month, and if we don't think we need it, then staff will have some discretion, and we won't include it in the agenda.
You can make a short report if that's what's needed. That's
great.
No problem. Okay, thank you. Angela, did we receive any comments for this item?
No comments were received, sir.
Okay, then we'll move on. And I want to go back to Angela. You had read one of the public comments that you very rudely froze in the middle of.
My apologies, sir.
So you want to read that one again?
Yes, if you'll give me a chance, I'll try it again.
Okay.
From Elaine Briggs, she wrote, I am voicing my concerns regarding traffic and noise for the proposed 24/7 Amazon distribution center planned for the corner of Weld Boulevard in Cuyamaca. We live less than a half a mile from the site and didn't hear about this planned center until late February when a local news channel aired the story. We in Fletcher Hills Highlands have to endure airport noise, rubble strip noise from the 125 North, and now backup alarm noise from a truck-filled distribution center. Commercial motor vehicles are required to have these alarms, so reading articles about how the developer will ensure the alarms are not a nuisance are just untrue. Think about your constituents and not the city pocketbook, and do not give final approval. End of comment. And we received no other comments.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that. We're now at activity reports of council members. Going back to item 10, that's my activities report, and that's as reported now. Mayor Pro Tem Gary Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Michelle Mitchell.
As reported.
Councilmember Steve Goebel.
As reported.
Councilmember Phil Ortiz.
One change, I was not able to make it to the ECTLC Team Center reveal, but I saw a video of it, and it's a great facility, and it's going to be a benefit to the constituent.
That's great. How big is it?
Fairly big. Steve, you were there. You were part of that video, and it looks like you could fit a good couple dozen children in there.
That's very accurate. The room is about 20 feet by 30 feet, so 600 to 750 square feet. It's got air hockey and PlayStations and ping pong
Oh, great.
And seating areas and even a little stage for anybody, they said, to get up and do karaoke or recite poetry. So whatever the kids want to do, it's got a place for it.
Is that coming back?
It's with pickleball. They're neck and neck right now.
Okay. That's funny. Okay. Then that brings us to joint councilor reports. And there are none of those and no general information items on today's agenda. We have 3 items under first readings. Item 15 is the introduction of an ordinance establishing local campaign limits. I'd like to ask staff to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll go ahead and handle most of these ordinances. You will recall that back in January, the City Council adopted a resolution to direct my office with the assistance of the City Manager to draft an ordinance to present to you as a City Council to add campaign contribution limitations for all City of El Cajon municipal elections. This was in response to the legislation that went into effect January 1st of this year that created a statewide campaign contribution limits unless limits were imposed by the city. Your direction was to create the limit of $10,000 per person in any, per individual in any local campaign with an annual increase based on the consumer price index for San Diego region. We've prepared the ordinance for introduction to add Chapter 2.18 to Title 2 of the Municipal Code to establish these limitations. It's up for first reading, introduction and first reading, and I'll be here to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
I do have one question. In the definition section, 2.18.030, no individual shall make. Does that cover persons and companies?
The intent that we heard is that this would only cover people. The individuals, as a defined term under the Political Reform Act, is not to include organizations or companies, corporations, or political parties. So the intent was to make it for an individual, a human person.
So how are companies or corporations treated under this ordinance?
They aren't. My understanding, our understanding was that really you didn't want any limitations, but when I told you had to create something, we kept it as narrow as possible.
So is that saying there are no limits on corporations or companies?
No local limits by the city. We don't have them now. And the legislation that actually caused us to address this only dealt with people, persons as well. It did not address corporations or parties or anything of that nature. So we tailored it to simply create a limitation of 10,000 per election to cover that legislation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it per election or per calendar year?
It's per calendar year, but I'm sorry, you're right. It's a per calendar year. I'm sorry, no, it's an election. So the change will go up every calendar year, but the limitation is based on an election cycle.
Okay.
So it's contributions to a candidate for a particular election.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. Are there any public comments on this?
No, sir, no comments.
All right, then I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gobo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote, and with your permission, I'll read the title of the ordinance.
Please.
An ordinance adding Chapter 2.18 to Title 2 of the El Cajon Municipal Code to establish local campaign limits for the city of El Cajon.
Okay, thank you. Item 16 is the introduction of an ordinance to amend ECMC Chapter 6.16. I'll ask staff to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an item that we are doing, sort of providing some cleanup after we have engaged the San Diego Humane Society to operate our animal care facility. It was mentioned earlier in this meeting to recognize that they have taken over operations. They are asking us to clean up by removing some pretty old licensing limitations, things that the city might have had in effect for many decades, likely, and it addresses simply those licensing factors in Chapter 6.16. The entire amount of the changes are in the ordinance, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thanks, Morgan. Questions? All right. Angela, did we receive any comments on this?
Sure, we did not.
I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve an ordinance to amend section 6.16.060 and 6.16.090 and to repeal sections 6.16.080 and 6.16.120.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote, and the title reads, an ordinance to amend sections 6.16.060 and 6.16.090 and to repeal sections 6.16.080 and 6.16.120 of Chapter 6.16 of Title 6 of the El Cajon Municipal Code to conform to the San Diego Humane Society's dog licensing procedures.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last first reading, item 17, is the introduction of an ordinance to amend the speed limit zone at Hacienda Drive. Staff, please tell us about this.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor. My name is Mario Sanchez. I'm the city traffic engineer. This item proposes a change to the posted speed limit on Hacienda Drive between Swallow Drive and Windmill View Drive. By California law, we're supposed to update our surveys anywhere from between 5 to 10 years. And this particular section of street has expired. And we resurveyed the street, and the results of our survey recommended or proposed a lowering of the speed limit from 35 miles per hour to 30. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thanks, Mario. Appreciate that. All right. Any questions for Mario?
Well, yeah, I have one question. This is a residential street, correct?
Correct.
Thank
you. Angela, did we receive any comments on this?
No comments were received, sir.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion unless somebody has more discussion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote. And the title reads, an ordinance amending section 10.20.130 of chapter 10.20 of the municipal code to include updating the existing speed limit for Hacienda Drive from Swallow Drive to Windmill View Road.
Okay, there are no second readings on today's agenda. We're now at closed session. The city attorney will recite the title and lead us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a closed session for a conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation and whether the city should initiate litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9. There's one potential case.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the closed session.
Second.
Mayor Welzer vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Metchel.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're back from closed session. I'll let our attorney tell you what happened in the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. The City Council met in closed session to discuss anticipated litigation and whether to initiate litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9 with one potential case. Direction was given to the city's legal counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. This brings us to adjournment. The regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 9th day of March 2021, is adjourned until Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. See you tonight.